Insert sound of record scratch here. If we had one, you would be hearing it, but since we don't, I have to say it. Hey, welcome everybody. This episode of Chesapeake Uncharted is going to be a little different. We're actually playing the first episode of our new podcast, the Chesapeake Bay Journal Newscast. And that's where a few of us sit down once a month and chat about the biggest stories of the Bay, bringing you up to speed on everything you need to know regarding the Bay restoration and the environment in general around the Bay watershed. So I wanted to give you a little sneak peek here. And if you like what you hear, go ahead and find us at the Chesapeake Bay Journal Newscast, wherever you get your podcasts. And don't worry, we'll be returning with new episodes of the Chesapeake Uncharted podcast very soon, I promise. All right, on with the show. Well, welcome to the Chesapeake Bay Journal Newscast. This is the show where reporters from the Bay Journal, like myself, wade into the biggest environmental news impacting the Bay and beyond. I'm your host, Jeremy Cox. Let's dive into it. All right. Well, we thank you so much for joining us here today. We've got our crew here with us. I'm joined by our Virginia reporter, Lauren Hines Acosta.
Hello.
And coming all the way from Pennsylvania, we have our editor-at-large and founder, Carl Blankenship. Hello, Carl.
Hello.
All right, guys. Well, before we jump into it, I just wanted to run a quick announcement here, pay some bills, and we'll come right back.
Hi, I'm Susan Shinkeldecker, CEO of Chesapeake Conservancy. We're the only watershed-wide organization focused on both land conservation and stream restoration to achieve a healthier Chesapeake Bay. Using groundbreaking data and technology, we help the conservation movement focus efforts where they will have the greatest impact. For more information, visit ChesapeakeConservancy.org and follow us on social media. Thanks for caring about the Chesapeake Bay and for listening to Chesapeake Bay Journal Newscast.
Okay, welcome back. Of course, that was the Chesapeake Conservancy, and we just want to thank them very much for their patronage here. And again, we're about to jump into the biggest stories of the day. Let's start off with the Bay's Big Wave. That's the story that's the leading story, let's say, the A1 first minute of your newscast. I think, Carl, you've got something for us. What's going on?
About a year ago, it was big news when the Trump administration was cutting back a program called the Partnerships for Climate Smart Commodities, which was making $1 billion. Well, it's making $3 billion worth of grants nationwide and hundreds of millions of dollars of funding to the Bay watershed for various agricultural programs that was promoting various climate smart, I guess I should say, quote unquote, climate smart practices like soil health, regenerative agriculture, and cover crops, stream buffers, things like that.
So getting farmers to do their part to be more resilient for climate change and produce less greenhouse gases, maybe?
Exactly. It was things that would both help reduce runoff, and it would in some way benefit climate change, usually by sequestering carbon in soils or reducing emissions and stuff.
So you've got the story for us. What happened?
Well, it was a big blow a year ago to lose that much money for farm conservation practices because it in the Bay context was a huge amount. But recently, U.S. Department of Agriculture did leave the door open for some of the nonprofits and universities and others getting those grants to renegotiate those programs. And that is starting to happen. One of the biggest ones to lose a grant in this region was the Pennsylvania Association for Sustainable Agriculture that had like a $59 million grant pulled. But over the last year, they have renegotiated that and they will be going ahead and helping farms with conservation measures. They just can't explicitly be promoting quote unquote climate related measures. A farmer can come with them and want to do climate related things, but they can't actively go out and promote it. So they can do, broadly speaking, conservation, but not specifically climate conservation. And I've spoke to some others, and some other major grant recipients are also in this region, or also in the process of renegotiating their grants. And so it looks like that will not turn out to be as big of a loss of money for the region as was
Oh,
feared like a year ago.
well, that's some good news, but just stop you right there for a moment. Obviously, President Donald Trump has long been a skeptic, to say the least, about climate science. Does this restructuring of these grants have something to do with that? Does it go all the way up to the top, as it were?
Oh yeah, it's definitely because, when USDA pulled the funding, they used some fairly inflammatory language to talk about the Green New Scam and deriding climate focused things specifically. They were very critical of climate and pulling the funding.
I wonder why then that the administration has kind of mm, given a little here if they're so anti-climate action to allow farmers to go forward with these programs by just changing the nomenclature then.
Well, I think part of it is there is a lot of money going to farmers, and they didn't want to be seen as pulling money from farmers. And when they were pulling funding a year ago, they were complaining that not enough of the money in this program was going directly to farmers. And so, in restructuring
Mm.
the grants, these places are having to send more money to farmers. There's drawbacks to that because, like the Pennsylvania Association of Sustainable Agriculture, part of their goal was to train technical assistance people to go out and work on some of these conservation programs, which there's often a shortage of boots on the ground for this.
Mhm.
And the way this grant's reworked, it gets more money to farmers, but it's shortchanging the technical support aspect of it.
So the Trump administration had come in, maybe painted too broadly with that brush, and ended up taking wanted money away from an important constituency, farmers in his base, and now are trying to find ways to thread the needle.
Yeah, yeah, I mean, like I say, that from the beginning, they had said they were open to renegotiating these under changed parameters. They were not very explicit over what those parameters would be, and that's clearly come more into focus in the last few months.
It's been interesting to see like a little bit of the culture change with Chesapeake Bay program and some other environmental groups where they're using like this new language. And Jeremy, it was what changing environmental conditions.
Mhm.
And a lot of like the goals and projects are ultimately the same. We just have this new language, which is interesting.
So, Carl, thanks for bringing that to our attention. What's the next step in that? More organizations, I guess, trying
Yeah,
to
there's a,
negotiate back into the game?
yeah, there's a number of organizations that I contacted that said they were similarly in the process of trying to renegotiate their grants. And so I imagine that there will be other ones in coming weeks or months.
Cool. Well, thank you, Carl. That was our big wave of the month. And now we're going to stick with our nautical theme, obviously, jump into some current tides. That's where we go around each of our states and talk about the most important thing that's happening there in terms of the environment. Lauren, Virginia, what's going on?
Yeah, so there's a really big transmission line project that's going to go through Virginia in the next couple of years. So it's called Valley Links Joshua Falls to Yeet transmission line. And
Just flows right off the tongue.
yes, yeah. It's basically the two names of the two substations the line's going to connect to. But it's going through 9 counties, hundreds of parcels of land, affecting a lot of landowners. And but it's the largest Dominion energy transmission line in its territory. So it's pretty big. And it's also one of the utilities more high voltage lines. Like this thing is going to carry up to 6.6 gigawatts of power. So I think in my article, I say that's like 3 Hoover dams of energy.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a lot. And
So
it's,
why is this needed?
yeah, so it's really to fuel the energy demand we're seeing in the Eastern PJM territory. And PJM is like kind of the grid operator for 13 states, including a lot of those in the Bay watershed. And it is partly fueled. A leading driver is data centers.
There we go. It's always data centers, isn't it?
It sure does feel like it. I try to make sure I'm not overstating their importance because there are other things like population growth, fossil fuel plants are retiring, farmers are big mad, I'll say, or a lot of them are, just because, it could go through their properties. But right now, Dominion Energy and the other utilities part of this are holding open houses. So the public will get a chance to at least try and alter the route, but it looks like the line is coming nonetheless.
With the farmers, what's kind of their biggest objection here?
Yeah, I mean, it's basically going through a lot of their properties, so they're
Mm,
worried about, getting land out of operation, but also like lowering their property value could go down. I mean, it's really going through a lot of rural Virginia, so they feel as if one farmer said, they're in the sacrifice zone for what's happening in Northern Virginia. Now, I will say the energy, when it connects to the grid, it's going to the entire grid. It doesn't go directly to data centers, but it's becoming a very us versus them mentality kind of rise here. So it's going to have a huge impact, let alone the environmental impacts. It's just going to impact like 2,600 acres of land. Some of that's farm, some of that's forest. Yeah.
it just feels like, we have a similar project in Maryland, the MPRP transmission line that's generated a lot of static, shall we say.
Mhm.
Again, data centers being one of the main drivers of that, although not exclusively. And it just feels like in the last few years, transmission lines have suddenly been getting a lot of pushback, generating a lot of headlines. I mean, what do you think's changed here?
It may just be the scale of it. I mean, these are high voltage, pretty tall towers, and they just have to go farther distances to get more power in more places. So that's my theory, I will say. I think it's scaling up to where
Mhm.
it's impacting more and more people.
Is the environmental community weighed in on this?
Yeah, the Piedmont Environmental Council is particularly concerned, a lot for the same reasons as what the farmers have stated, but also the impact of this route because it may go through federally threatened bat species, and then it will cross rivers that have big freshwater mussel populations, but there shouldn't be any in-stream work. So I think the mussels
Mhm.
will be okay for the
Okay.
most part.
Yeah, I know from the MPRP project, for example, in Maryland, that the backers of that project say we got to have this because of reliability in the system.
Yeah.
It'll increase the chances of power outages and brownouts and that sort of thing. Is that what you're hearing there in Virginia with that project as well?
Yeah, Dominion Energy saying, this will ensure reliability and act as like a redundancy to prevent power outages. And Dominion, they're basically saying the largest energy demand since like World War, I want to say two.
One of
Um,
those world wars.
yeah, I mean, the energy demand is basically doubling, I think, by 2030.
Well, thank you for that, Lauren.
Well, Jeremy, did you have a story you wanted to highlight for us? What's
Oh,
going on
do I
around?
ever?
You have
We
the
get to
big one.
Yeah, yeah, we've kind of got a national story in our backyard here with the Potomac Interceptor spill, the collapse back in January that spilled millions upon millions of gallons of untreated raw sewage into the tributary of the Potomac River and washed downstream, flowed that way for about a week or so before it could be caught back into kind of a holding area. Well, now, of course, the owner of the pipe, DC Water, has fixed the pipe enough, got a temporary fix where the sewage is flowing where it's supposed to be, and now the cleanup is going forward. So, see my article in the April edition of the Bay Journal for that. But now, Tim Wheeler and I, my colleague here in Maryland, we're working on a story about okay, now that this has happened, what are the long-term implications of this? Like, how's it going to affect the environment, perhaps even human health,
Mhm.
months, some length of time down the road?
Yeah, I mean it's just crazy to like watch. I know the Potomac Riverkeeper Network has been really on it about at least gathering data and monitoring the situation as well.
Yeah, and it turns out that groups of scientists have really converged on this scene. So you can imagine them putting their little scientist sirens on top of their car and driving down to the
Yeah.
river and all that, being a little hyperbolic, but not by much. So just got off the phone a few moments ago with a researcher with the University of Maryland Center for Environmental Science who is looking into biogeochemistry of it all.
Mm.
And they found that there's already signs. So here we are, it's April something right now, already signs in the Potomac of phytoplankton bloom.
Oh,
So of
wow.
stuff growing as a result of the nutrients that came downstream. And so, given the location of it and the size of it, suggests that this is going to be probably a longer season in the Potomac for algae blooms and for the dead zones that follow behind them. So, not uncommon for this to happen, right? There's plenty of runoff from cities and farms, nutrients, too much of them getting into the river. When those algae blooms feed on them and die off, you end up often the same thing you end up with the bay proper is a dead zone at the bottom where there's not a lot of oxygen and fish either flee or die, basically. It's
Yeah.
exactly what it says it is. And so more nutrients and the kind of nutrients that they are spells trouble down the road.
Yeah. I mean, Carl, you've been in the so-called Bay Game for a while. Have you seen like anything of this magnitude before? Because it feels huge to me, but I've only been covering the Bay like 2 years, so I don't know.
Well, it's huge for sewer flow. I mean, annually the amount of nutrients that go into the bay fluctuates hugely, like based on the amount of rain in the spring, which drives runoff. And so that really drives massive shifts year to year. But
Mm.
for an infrastructure failure, this is obviously a massive one. And it carries with it a lot of things that the spring rains don't necessarily do, including a lot of human health concerns with the bacteria and stuff like that. I am curious with the stuff that they have kind of trapped. Does that gets treated or what are they doing with it?
Gets trapped in the sediments, you mean?
Yeah, I mean they were kind of trying to hold it from going directly into the
Yeah.
river, right?
I mean, if there was any good news, it didn't spill directly into the river itself. It sort of came out along the Clara Barton Parkway there in Montgomery County and found its way into this. I mean, to call it a tributary is a bit dramatic, but into sort of a gully that goes down maybe a few hundred yards before it gets to the river. So most of the active cleanup is happening in that spot right now to scrape off the top 3, 4 inches of muck and dirt and solids and nutrients, everything else. Yeah, sorry. Um, and get rid of that. If it had come straight into the river, then there wouldn't have been that sort of filtering effect going on there. As for the river itself, aside from that maybe immediate area there, I haven't heard about any active restoration. But that's what this science is about,
Mm,
is to get a handle of, okay, what are we seeing in the sediments, and therefore what sort of actions are called for.
mm. Of
Cool. Well,
course, if you go back to like the 70s, almost all the sewage was going into the Potomac with very little treatment. So it's kind of like,
Right.
yeah.
No,
turning
it's
into.
interesting you bring that up because the scientist I was talking to was saying this is like going back to the 1800s,
Yeah.
Oh,
to the days of like people putting out night soil and workers coming around in the night to throw it into the river, basically.
right.
And in those days, it was estimated, she was telling me, about 50 million gallons a day of untreated sewage would go into the river that way from Washington, D.C. alone. This spill was about 250 to 300 million gallons. So, in a way, it's sort of this unplanned science experiment. Okay, what was it like back in the 1800s?
Mm.
We're experiencing it today.
That's
Yeah,
so wild to think about. Mm.
not fun to think about, but that's our job. And you know what? I applaud you listeners for hanging with us through it all. Well, so on to our segment, Walk in Our Shoes. You don't literally have to do that. We'll actually just talk you through it. So this is where we give you a sense of what it's like to be out there as a Bay Journal reporter, maybe share a little bit behind the scenes about, the sometimes wacky things that go on. And Lauren, I think you got us covered this time. What happened to you this month?
Yeah, so the transmission line story, I was kind of hurting for photos, right? Because a lot of it's just a map and renderings. I was out at the Virginia Press Association conference in Lynchburg, and there's
Oh,
a
congratulations, by
oh,
the way.
thank
Award, first place award winner. So, okay. Enough patting ourselves on the back. Move on.
you. Yeah, so there was I had like an open source map. The substation the line connects to is there. But I had to like, I wanted to get a picture of like a transmission line that was similar so people have an idea what it will look like. So I had this open source map and I'm like, it's kind of like a treasure map, the way I'm like trying to track down this transmission line because, it's just going across mountains or whatever. So like I'm going down state roads. I'm praying no one yells at me for getting close to their property. I'm like
Or worse.
parking. Yeah, parking on the side of the state road. So I did get some pictures finally. And then I was down by the James getting another picture, and like this woman, she's just fishing. And, we're just chatting, being friendly. I tell her why I'm there and what I'm doing. And she said her family is being impacted by the line just by happenstance. I ran into somebody.
Hmm.
So I don't know if that's luck, if that's like chance, or
Wow.
if that's just how many people this line is impacting.
You make your own luck. Well, what did she say?
Yeah, she said so the line is going to go through her parents' property, and they're not farmers, but they've been in that house on this big like acreage for generations, and they're thinking about moving. So she pretty much said it kind of sucks. Um,
Yeah. Well, all these stories, by the way, in case you're wondering, you can find them online at bayjournal.com. That's our website. Or, of course, you're free to pick up our physical ink on your hands version. Some might call it a newspaper. And our May edition should be out first week of May or so, landing in your mailbox. And obviously, if you're into the whole getting things for free, you can sign up for a free subscription at bayjournal.com. Just look for the subscribe button on the right-hand side of the screen. So now that you're doing that, a little something to listen to while you're trekking along the internet, which is our game show, right? Two truths and a lie. Woo! Lauren, take it away.
Okay, yes. So yes, I will present three statements, two Bay-related truths, and one Bay-related lie, and y'all will have to guess. But Carl, I don't know. I don't think there's no fooling you. So we'll see how this goes. Okay, statement A. The meteorite which helped form the bay crashed about 35 million years ago. B. Cow-nose rays can detect electric fields with the organ vaca radius. C, a 100-year storm means a storm has a 1% chance of happening every year. So between A, B, and C, what do you think is the lie? Ooh, did I stump Carl?
You might have done the impossible here.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember when the meteor hit.
Well, we've established that the meteor is a thing. Yes, the Chesapeake Bay was formed in part by space junk. No, not junk. Space rock.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to say B.
Okay. We have B. What do you think, Jeremy?
Yeah, can you say what B? Cow nose ray? What?
So cow nose rays can detect electric fields with the organ vaca radius.
Vaca means cow. So, either you're relying on your Spanish there to trick me or not. So I got cow nose ray, I have a meteor thing, and 1 in 100 year storm, 1%. I feel like that's right. I'm going to join Carl because agreeing with Carl has never led me down the wrong path.
All right, well, y'all are correct. B is wrong. The organ is actually called ampullae of Lorenzini.
You were trying to trick me with Spanish.
I threw it in a Latin translation. I was like, what did I do? I think I did cow nose in Latin.
Yeah, oh. See, this is why you're the host of the trivia shows, because you were very clever like that.
Well, thanks. Good job, you guys.
Yeah, good job. And thank you, Carl, for basically carrying us on your shoulders. Well, since that's the end of our game show, that brings us to the end of our show. So I'm here to remind you that the Chesapeake Bay Journal Newscast is a production of the Chesapeake Bay Journal, the Bay region's premier source for independent environmental news. Please remember to subscribe to the Chesapeake Bay Journal Newscast wherever you get your podcasts. If you like what you've heard, you can get even more journalism from the Bay Journal delivered to your inbox or mailbox. You can sign up for a free subscription at our website, bayjournal.com. This series is co-produced by Lauren Hines Acosta and myself, Jeremy Cox. Our executive editor is Laura Lutz. For advertising information, you can contact Jackie Kane by email at jkane@bayjournal.com. That's JCAINE@bayjournal.com. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next month.
Thank you.
Woo, bye. Yay. We'll miss you.